The following podcast is a deep, shallow dive production.
And you're going to love it.
Okay, let's go.
Hey, everybody. Happy Monday. Man, I think it's been a few weeks since I've actually gotten an episode out on a Monday. I did not get one out on Friday, so I apologize, but I am getting one out today. So anyway, I hope everybody had a nice weekend and hope you got a chance to do whatever it is you do on weekends and enjoy yourself. And let's see. What shall we talk about today? All right, you know what? I have something interesting to talk about because I didn't really talk about this the last week, but O.J. Simpson died, as I'm sure you all know. Although, you know what? This is funny. I was talking to somebody on Saturday, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to just watch the O.J. documentary from 2016. It looks like it's on Netflix again, and I never watched it. I'm talking about that. I think it was a ESPN 30 for 30 originally, but it's called Made in America, and they are rerunning it now on Netflix, and so I never watched it. And then she was like, why are you watching that? That's so weird. I'm like, well, because OJ died, and, I never watched it, and it's very critically acclaimed, and I heard it was interesting, so I thought I'd watch it. And she was like, what? OJ died? And I was like, yeah, OJ died. Did you not see that on the news? She's like, no, I didn't hear anything about it. Although, now that you mention it, yeah, I was seeing a bunch of OJ stuff. I was like, man, that must be nice. That must be nice. And if any of you right now are in shock that OJ died, yes, OJ Simpson died last week. They say after a bout with cancer, although, again, I never really knew he even had cancer. Like I said, I've followed him on Twitter, not a lot, but oh my God, there have been some funny times with OJ on Twitter. And the funniest was when that Alex Murdaugh guy, the Southern, I think it was like Alabama or Louisiana, the big white lawyer dude with his family that was like super well off and basically like dominated the law in that family. And then he ended up killing his wife and son in some crazy thing. Alex Murdaugh, I think it's called like the Murdaugh trials or something. There was a absolutely hilarious Twitter video OJ made where he was like breaking down the case. And then he's like, he's guilty. I mean, if it's not obvious to you that he's guilty, I don't know what is. And people lost their minds. Like they lost their minds on it, and they did all these like remixes, and it was actually pretty comical that OJ, I mean, how can you not have enough self-awareness? A deep, shallow dive pillar, by the way. How could you not have enough self-awareness to realize what you're talking about? I don't know. Maybe he did it. But anyway, so I started watching Made in America, and it's really well done. For anyone that hasn't seen it, it looks like they are running that, they must have got the rights from ESPN. And so it is on Netflix right now, and it is incredibly, incredibly insightful and good. And I will tell you a few very poignant things that I've taken away from it so far. And the first is that, it was so interesting that OJ really didn't seem to embrace being black. Now, he didn't really like disassociate himself with being black, but literally, and well, he claims it was said out of context, but then Jay-Z even did a rap song about it where he said, I'm not black, I'm OJ. And aside from whether that was out of context or not, but it's an incredibly interesting side of him and also part of him that quite frankly looks like it started manifesting even when OJ was in high school, definitely when he was at USC, But, you could tell he really wanted to transcend color. And that was really interesting that a guy that came from, he was, I think the San Francisco. Yeah, he grew up in San Francisco and, obviously not the best part of town. And, kind of came from the streets a little bit. Obviously a generational type athlete on the football field, but he absolutely wanted to transcend color, and he conducted himself in a manner where, whether he thought it, admitted, or even consciously was doing it on purpose or not, but he really embraced the attitude that he wasn't black. He was OJ. And it was like this transcending persona, that was his like superpower, or his, I don't know, what's the word, superhuman attribute that he was really trying to develop. So that was really interesting on the one side. And so when you think about that, you think to yourself, okay, he's probably a super selfish person and unbelievably, all about OJ, and, and this is all kind of, I guess, contrived and manipulated. So you would think that attitude would carry on the football field, right? And you would think he would almost be like, I hate to say it, I love Kobe Bryant to death, but that was a bad thing. But I respect everything about Kobe Bryant's work ethic like so immensely. And, I rest in peace to him. And I really, really mourned that loss. I really did. I genuinely mourned his passing. But, he was not a great teammate from what everyone says. And Michael Jordan, even to an extent, although I think Jordan, people realized he was a great teammate after the fact. But with Kobe, I think there's still probably many teammates that, didn't really consider him a good teammate. And there's a hilarious thing that Shaq talked about where he basically said, I was having a conversation with Kobe and I said, Kobe, there's no I in team. And then Kobe looked at him and he's like, yeah, but there's a me, M-E. And that is hilarious if you think about it. There's no I in team, but there's a me. So anyway, getting back to OJ, what was fascinating about the dichotomy of OJ Simpson is the guy was an incredible teammate. Like, he was such an amazing and supportive teammate, which is the contrary of what you would think based on how he basically wanted to, transcend color and almost put himself in a category in and of himself. But he was an incredible teammate, both at USC and then when he was in the NFL with the Buffalo Bills. And more than anything, there was a segment of it where he broke Jim Brown's single season rushing record. I think it was Jim Brown's single season rushing record. Yeah, it was Jim Brown's single season rushing record where he ran for over 2,000 yards. And the CBS or ABC commentator wanted to interview him, and he said, hey, I'm not doing the interview unless we bring the entire team in, or his offensive team. So basically, he brought the entire offensive unit into the interview, and then he went one by one and introduced everybody, introduced all the linemen, the receivers, his quarterback, everybody. And when you listen to the interviews from his teammates during this, Made in America documentary, they could not, and this is pre the murder and all that, but they could not be more, I guess, complimentary as to what a wonderful teammate he was. So he was a complex guy. Like, I found that dichotomy incredibly interesting. Anyway, I haven't finished it. I will definitely let you know without spoiling anything, any other any other interesting observations I might have. But if you haven't seen it, it is on Netflix now. It's called OJ Made in America. It's from 2016. You can't miss it. So anyway, wanted to chat that. And ironically, that really does touch on, I'm going to start talking about these deep shallow dive pillars a lot more because they're really good, and I'm creating some materials, based around them. But that concept of self-awareness, which I guess OJ really did have, like it's pretty crazy to think that he had it, except maybe after the Nicole Brown Simpson tragedy and all that, maybe he didn't have it then. But growing up as a younger, let's say less experienced young athlete, he definitely did seem to have self-awareness. And, it's really interesting to see what's going on in the world right now. And you look at the way people, especially politicians, handle themselves. And so few of them truly have self-awareness. Like they just don't see how absolutely, just contradictory so many of the things they say are. Now, maybe they do see it. So maybe they do understand themselves better than I give them credit for. And, whether it's having to go along with party lines or what, but, the more and more I'm learning about politics, the more and more I'm realizing just how few politicians truly think for themselves. And, we're going to really delve into this when I don't even know what the episode is going to be called, but it's been pretty eye-opening for me, my own political journey, to be honest. I mean, I think I've shared this in a few different episodes, and I find it really interesting because, again, I was somebody that thought he was Republican growing up for no other reason besides I liked Ronald Reagan, and I don't know. I just thought I was a Republican. I really don't even know why. And then I basically, once I became a citizen in 2004, ironically, here's another ironic twist with the OJ situation. I pieced together that the day OJ's thing happened, you know what? I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think that's the day I got sworn in as a citizen of the United States, June 17th, 2004. And like I said, I was grabbing some coldies with Mike Kroll in the flats in Cleveland. I really think it's the same day. I'm going to go try and look at my naturalization papers and see if that was the same day. That'll be crazy if it was. But anyway, my point is, when I started voting, I basically, even though I thought, quote unquote, thought I was a Republican, when I started voting, I basically voted for the quality that was instilled in me growing up in Warrensville Heights, Ohio, on this street called Walford, where I just basically learned how to judge people for who they were. It was such a melting pot where we grew up, and I love that so much. God, I'm so appreciative to have had that childhood experience up until the 6th grade, until we moved, where there was like black, white, Asian, Hispanic, people from Norway, Sweden, Denmark. I mean, all kinds of countries. It was like a little melting pot on our street. And so I basically grew up in those really, really formative years, in those really, really formative young years, I grew up not seeing color, because when I would go outside and play, it was just all about having fun. And it didn't matter what color that other kid was. It was like, we just enjoyed riding our bikes and having fun and doing all that stuff. I really think that formed who I am and how I look at people. And so later, politically, when it came time to finally be able to vote, I think I really would vote based on who I thought was a better person. And I shared this in episode number 2. Gosh, I can't even remember if I voted for George W. Bush. If I did, I missed the boat on that one as far as who was the better person. Although I don't even remember who he ran against. I know Al Gore one time. I don't think either one of those guys are any good now. But 2008, Obama. 2012, Obama. 2016, Hillary. And then in 2020, I did vote for Trump. And the Trump vote was not about who was a better person. The Trump vote was about who I thought would do a better job for the country. And again, I mean, trigger warning for all you who might not agree or might, have voted for Biden. Look at where we are right now in this world. I mean, seriously. And again, I'm not blaming all that on Biden. I definitely am not. But what I am saying is that for example, when Trump won in 2016, everybody thought, oh my gosh, we're going to go to war. And there were no wars between 2016 and 2020. And look at the state of the world right now. There's 2 active wars, 2 really that we know about. There's actually more turmoil. Like right now, there's crazy stuff going on in Haiti, which I'm going to really kind of get myself, I was up to speed on it, but I'm going to get myself back up to speed on it and then share that with you guys. I think the stuff in Sudan is not settled. So there's craziness going on in Sudan. And then there's a multiple of other situations going on in other areas that we're just not seeing anything about because our attention is so focused on, Russia, Ukraine, and now Gaza, Israel, Palestine, and now Israel, Iran. So we'll talk about that in a second. But fundamentally, I mean, if you really think about it, all of the I guess, hysteria that, oh man, Trump's got the nuclear codes, world's coming to an end. None of that stuff happened. And again, calling a spade, yes, he sent out mean tweets, and yes, his moral fiber can definitely be questioned. Absolutely. I mean, all these guys can. I mean, I'm not kidding. I can literally, and actually, I might even do this episode sometime. I'm going to poke a hole in all of them. Like, they all can be broken down. And quite frankly, this is really why I became independent. And this is why I actually changed my voting status to independent, is because I can't be all in on anybody. Like, I just can't. And, I would love it if whether you're Democrat or Republican, if you are all in, I'm talking like absolutely all in, and you cannot call a spade, I will give you 2 examples, one for each party. And if you can convince me otherwise, I will change my voting status to your party. And let's start with the Democrats. With the Democrats, if you are a Democrat and if you can convince me why over the past 3 years, the Democratic Party has completely ignored the United States southern border to where the unbelievable flood of migrants and fentanyl and all of that, we've done episodes on both of those. They've ignored that entire problem for 3 years. It's like Biden took office in 2020 and wanted to undo everything that was Trump, and that was one of them, the border, the wall, all that stuff. So if you can convince me why after 3 years, all of the sudden now, going into election year, the southern border is almost the number one Democrat Party priority, then I will change my status to become a Democrat. Convince me why it took 3 years, and convince me why over the past 3 years, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, why, or let's say mid 2023, why did the party completely ignore it and then have a complete 180? Okay. That's on the Democrat side. And then on the Republican side, if you can convince me why the Republicans are 100% all in support of Israel, no questions asked. It's like they could drop an atomic bomb and kill every Palestinian, and the entire Republican Party, besides two guys, Thomas Massey and Rand Paul, would be like, well, they had a right to defend themselves. And yeah, unfortunately, those innocent children, women, babies, elderly, even the men got in the way. So, sorry about that. I mean, that is literally what the Republican Party is willing to say. And I'll give you example after example in another episode where I have footage of, various Republican congressmen and senators who they just don't care. They have no empathy at all. Another deep shallow dive pillar, by the way. No empathy at all for, the 13,000 children that have been killed, the 9,000 women that have been killed. I think those numbers are even more than that. So if you're a Republican, if you can convince me why you should not have any empathy toward the killing of innocent women and children, then I'll switch back to Republican Party. I don't think either one is going to be able to convince me, so I think I'm going to be happy as an independent. And so speaking of which, I do want to kind of end on the stuff going on in Israel and Iran over the weekend, if you were paying attention. And my goal with this is to give you some things to think about, and we're going to delve into these more later this week. But basically, if you don't know what took place, about, 2 weeks ago, Israel out of nowhere bombed the Iranian embassy in Damascus, which is in Syria. Unprovoked, they bombed the embassy, killing, I think, 2 of the high-ranking Iranian officials that worked out of the Iranian embassy in Damascus. Now, really quick on that, foreign countries' embassies in other countries are basically considered, sovereign states or sovereign buildings, and they're almost considered part of the original country, meaning that if you bomb an embassy in a country, it's almost as if it's considered the same as if you're bombing the country, because that embassy is considered to be part of that other country, even though it's on, the foreign soil. That's why, for example, Julian Assange, man, this is nice. We're tying some things together. That's why Julian Assange sought refuge in the Ecuadorian embassy, and he got a chance to live there for like 7 or 9 years before England kind of told Ecuador to give him up, and they did. But that's why he was able to basically avoid being arrested for so long, because he was in the Ecuadorian embassy. So anyway, Israel bombed the Iranian embassy in Damascus. And so for the past 2 weeks now, Iran has basically they've basically been telegraphing, and it's like they've posted like stories on Instagram about this, reels. They did stuff on TikTok. I'm just kidding about that. But they've pretty much said, hey, we're going to hit back, and we're just letting you know. And like literally, like last week, we're going to do this. It's coming. Get ready. It's going to happen. Chances are it's going to happen Saturday morning. And it did. It happened Saturday morning. So they basically released like 300 kind of dumb drones, and Israel shot all of them down. They intercepted 99% of the drones. Pretty interesting how the Iron Dome worked like a charm on Saturday, but on October 7th, it didn't work at all. That's interesting. But you know what? Let's table that. We will unpack that another time. But so they intercepted everything. Nothing really happened. It was just kind of like a smack back by Iran, but Iran completely telegraphed it. They told everybody what we're doing. They told the United States, they told Israel. So, to me, what took place was political theater. And so now, really, honestly, I think it was political theater. I think it was a coordinated effort. Everybody was in on it. So I want you to give thought to that. Like, if you're really going to attack, just attack. Like, why would you do it that way? So it makes you think, what is really going on with all this stuff? Now, I have talked previously in several of the episodes that, if there is going to be disruption in the 2024 election. And again, I don't know. I mean, but that's a storyline that could happen. One of the ways it could happen would be an all-out war that the United States is in. And if you think about it, the only country right now, it's not going to happen with Russia. We're already kind of doing that with Ukraine. It's not going to happen with China. That's not going to happen. So the only real viable option would be Iran. And so, is this the beginning of that? I don't think so, because I think a lot of people think like I do on this, because, man, there were a ton of great videos. There are people like, okay, this was like political theater. This was so premeditated. Everybody knew it was coming. This is not what it seems to be. But I will tell you, all the warmongering dummies are like, oh my God, we're at war. We're not. This was not it. If there's going to be provocation, this was not it. And, here's again where you have to call a spade and give Biden credit on this. All of the Republicans were like, Biden's such a, I don't want to call him a P-U-S-S-Y, so you can't call the president of the United States that. That's not nice. So, but that's what the Republicans were saying. They're like, oh, he's so soft, he's so weak, we can't let Iran get away with it. And fundamentally, Biden, cooler heads were prevailing. He basically told Netanyahu, hey, listen, if you strike back, we're not going to back you up. And that's the right answer. That is the right answer on that. So, again, if you hate Biden, that's cool. But in my opinion, I liked the way he handled that. I didn't hear Trump come out and say that much, because I think he's got his civil trial starts today. So he probably had other things on his mind. But, you've got all the warmongers in the Republican Party, the Lindsey Grahams of the world, this guy Dan Crenshaw. These guys are just knuckleheads. They're knuckleheads. They're just wanting war. They want to feed that military-industrial complex because that's where their bread is buttered. That's where, that is literally where they get the bulk of their donations, probably for their campaign. So, it's a quid pro quo, scratch my back, I'll scratch yours type thing. So anyway, my point of all that is that, so what happened with Iran and Israel, I don't really think that was any type of start to a war. I think that was something that needed to be done. Iran said, hey, you bombed our embassy. We got to hit back. And it's coming Saturday morning at 6:00. I don't think they told them what it was going to be, but regardless, the fact that 99% of whatever they shot over was intercepted, no real damage. To me, that was a little bit of theater. The same thing happened when Trump killed that Soleimani guy. They basically, literally, actually, somebody sent me something. I'll play it tomorrow. But they basically sent Trump a thing and said, hey, you did that. I mean, whatever, that wasn't very nice. We're going to have to hit back, and we're just letting you know. So, it's pretty interesting that Trump said all this. So that gives you a sneak peek into the backroom stuff that's going on. So anyway, all right, that's it. Man, I can't even believe we're at 28 minutes. That was a lot of rambling. Have a great Monday. Hope you enjoyed this. I just want you to critically think and start thinking about things, and we'll go into more things over the week. All right, call a spade a spade.
The ending was terrific.
This episode is being brought to you by the upcoming book, Deep Shallow Dive Into You. That's right, Bro wrote a book, and it's coming soon. Stay tuned.